Phase 1. The Trap. It is the first of the month. You are sitting in the dark, staring at the chipped edge of your kitchen table in a cramped, poorly lit one-bedroom apartment. You make $45,000 a year working a standard soul-crushing 9-to-5 job. You show up every single day. You punch the clock. You do what you are told. You get your W-2 at the end of the year, just like you were taught by your parents and your teachers. But the math is not mathing. After taxes, Social Security, and health insurance, that $45,000 looks a lot more like $35,000. And right now you are watching $1,400 leave your checking account for rent. The money just vanishes into the ether. It pays for your landlord's mortgage. It pays for your landlord's property taxes. It pays for your landlord's vacations. You get nothing in return except permission to sleep inside a box for another 30 days. Your phone lights up on the table. It is a new email from the property management company. The subject line is brief. The message is cold. They are raising your rent to $1,550 next year. They cite market adjustments and increased operational costs. You feel a tight, suffocating knot form in your chest. You are officially priced out of your own life. You realize right then and there that saving cash from your paycheck will never beat the aggressive rate of inflation. You have almost $0 in actual savings. You are one blown tire, one medical bill, or one layoff away from a total financial crisis. The system is designed to keep you exactly where you are, producing labor and consuming products. But anger breeds focus. You refuse to accept this as your permanent reality. You start digging. You stay up until 3 a.m. night after night, hunting for a way out. You scour forums, read articles, and watch videos. You stumble onto a loophole. It is a strategy that wealthy individuals use, but nobody bothers to teach in high school economics. They call it house hacking. You spend weeks driving around the rougher edges of town. You finally find it, a beat-up, aggressively ugly 1970s duplex. It has peeling brown paint, overgrown bushes that scratch the siding, and a distinct smell of stale cigarettes. To anyone else, it is a tear down. To you, it is an exit strategy. You do not have the standard 20% down payment required for an investment property. You do not even have 10%, but you find a local lender who walks you through a first-time homebuyer program. Because you are going to live in one of the units, the government views it as a primary residence, you qualify for an FHA loan, which only requires 3.5% down. Then you execute your first real financial negotiation. You do not just accept the asking price, you ask for seller concessions. You tell the seller they need to cover your closing costs if they want the deal to go through, knowing the property has been sitting on the market for 90 days. Desperate to offload the headache, they agree. A month later, you are sitting at a massive mahogany table at the title company. You sign a mountain of paperwork that you barely understand. You hand over the keys to your overpriced apartment. You move your meager belongings into the dark, dirty half of the duplex. You check your bank app one last time before you go to sleep. Your account has hit absolute zero. Every single penny you had to your name is now trapped in the drywall and foundation of this aging building. It is terrifying. You are completely exposed. But for the first time in your entire life, you actually own the roof over your head. Phase 2, the sacrifice, years 1 to 3. The grind officially begins. You are living in a construction zone. You do not have a proper bed frame. You sleep on a cheap, constantly deflating air mattress surrounded by towers of drywall dust, empty paint cans, and half-eaten takeout containers. The air is cold in the mornings because you refuse to turn up the heat. Your weekends no longer belong to you. While your friends are out spending $80 on drinks downtown and complaining about their useless bosses, you are wearing thick work gloves and watching YouTube tutorials on how to snake a main sewer line. You fix the sloping floors yourself. You patch the fist-sized holes in the drywall. You bleed on the property. There is a guy living in the other half of your duplex. He was there when you bought the place. He is a solid, quiet tenant. He works a heavy blue-collar job and pays his rent on time every single month. He pays you $1,300 a month in rent. You sit down at your dusty, paint-splattered kitchen counter with a cheap calculator and your mortgage statement. Your total monthly payment to the bank, which includes the loan principal, the interest, the local property taxes, and the hazard insurance, comes out to exactly $1,350 a month. You stare at the blinking black numbers. Your tenant pays $1,300. The bank wants $1,350. You pull $50 out of your own pocket to cover the difference. You are living in a house that you own for exactly $50 a month out of pocket. You are taking the $1,350 you used to pay your old corporate landlord and silently stacking it into a high-yield savings account. You are building equity on someone else's dime. You feel invincible. Then year 3 hits you right in the jaw. It is a Tuesday in mid-February. It is 14 degrees outside. You wake up at 4:30 a.m. to 3 frantic text messages. Your tenant side is freezing. You go down to the basement. The 20-year-old furnace is completely dead, a total loss. You call an emergency HVAC crew. They quote you $6,500 for a total replacement. You feel a cold sweat break out on the back of your neck. You open your banking app and look at that high-yield savings account where you meticulously stacked your money every month. It holds exactly $7,100. You write the check. In one single signature, your entire safety net is vaporized. You feel sick to your stomach. You feel like a massive failure. You feel like you are right back at square one. But the heat kicks back on. The tenant stays, they pay rent on the 1st. You realize you survived your first real crisis without going bankrupt. You learn the harsh reality of capital expenditures. You swallow the panic. You keep moving. Phase 3, the tenant disaster, years 4 to 6. 5 years pass. You are older. You are physically tired, but your eyes carry a different kind of focus. The neighborhood around your duplex starts to shift. A trendy coffee shop opens 3 blocks down. The city gentrifies aggressively. The ugly duplex you bought for $180,000 is now officially appraised at $290,000. You have paid down a solid chunk of the original loan balance. You now have over $110,000 in ghost wealth trapped inside the walls of your property. You walk into a local bank. You ask for a home equity line of credit, commonly known as a HELOC. You leverage the ghost wealth and pull out $50,000 in liquid cash. Because the IRS does not tax debt, you do not pay a single cent in income tax on that $50,000. You take the money and use it as down payments on 2 separate single-family rental houses across town. You now own 3 properties, 4 doors. The cash flow starts looking real. You think you have the game completely figured out. Then year 6 arrives and reality punches you in the mouth again. The tenant in house number 2 completely stops paying. They dodge your calls. They ignore your texts. The eviction process in your state is brutal, and it takes 4 agonizing months. During those 4 months, you are forced to float 3 mortgages on your same $45,000 W-2 salary. You stop eating out entirely. You eat rice and beans. You cancel every subscription. You barely sleep. Finally, the sheriff locks them out. You pull up to the house and walk inside. The place is destroyed. Smashed drywall in the hallway. Copper stripped from the utility closet. Animal waste baked into the hardwood floors. You sit down on the front steps and actually cry. You want to sell everything. You want to quit and go back to renting. The weight of the debt feels like a physical hand pressing down on your chest. Instead, you stand up. You put your respirator mask back on, you grab a heavy-duty trash bag, you spend the next 3 weekends fixing the damage yourself, you learn how to properly background check, you put a highly screened tenant in, you harden your systems, you survive the disaster, and the calluses on your mind grow thicker. Phase 4, the taste of freedom, years 7 to 9. It is year 8. The financial snowball is massive, but it is getting dangerously heavy. Managing single-family houses across town is entirely exhausting. You are making real money now, but you are rapidly losing your time. You hit a bottleneck. It is time to pull the ultimate U.S. tax move. You put the 2 single-family houses and the original duplex up for sale. You are sitting on a massive, heavy pile of capital gains. If you simply sell these houses and cash out, the federal government will tax you into oblivion. Instead, you execute a 1031 exchange. You sell the properties, take all of the profit, and roll it directly into a new, larger property without paying a single dollar in capital gains taxes. You defer the tax completely. You take that massive pile of untaxed equity and use it as the down payment on a solid brick, 12-unit commercial apartment building. You hire a professional property management company. They take 8% of the gross rent, and in exchange, you stop answering late-night plumbing calls forever. The asset is no longer a grueling side hustle. It is a self-sustaining business generating $12,000 a month in gross rent. The machine starts printing freedom, and for the first time, you actually start feeling it. The mini wins start stacking up. First, you walk into your boss's office on a random Thursday and hand in your 2 weeks' notice. You do not have another job lined up. You just do not need this one anymore. You look your manager in the eye, and the fear that used to control you is entirely gone. Second, your mom calls you crying about a $3,000 unexpected dental bill that she cannot afford. You pull up your banking app while standing in line for a coffee and pay it for her immediately. You do not even have to check your balance to see if the money is there. Third, you wake up on a random Tuesday, turn off your alarm, and go for a walk in the sun at 10 a.m. while the rest of the world is stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic. You own your morning. Fourth, you spend $10,000 updating the communal laundry machines and painting the doors in the 12-unit. You raise the rent by just $50 a unit. Because commercial real estate is valued based on the income it generates, that tiny rent bump forces the overall value of your building up by another $150,000. You create 6 figures of wealth with a few coats of paint. Phase 5, the millionaire reality, year 10. You are sitting at a much nicer table now. It is a solid, heavy oak desk in a quiet, sunlit home office. It is a house you actually want to live in. It has been exactly 10 years since you sat in the dark in that miserable one-bedroom apartment staring at a $150 rent increase that you could not afford. You open your laptop, you open your personal balance sheet spreadsheet. Between the massive equity in the 12-unit commercial building, your liquid cash reserves, and the relentless upward march of market appreciation, your total net worth officially crosses the $1 million mark. You are a millionaire. You lean back in your heavy leather chair. The house is completely quiet. You look back at the younger, terrified version of you sweating over that $1,400 rent check a decade ago. You want to reach through time, grab that kid by the shoulders, and tell them the stress is worth it. You realize with total clarity that real estate was never a get-rich-quick scheme. It was a slow, brutal, fiercely unglamorous discipline. It was about voluntarily taking on massive amounts of stress, heavy debt, clogged toilets, and literal dirt so you could systematically move from the wrong side of the math to the right side of the math. You started with absolutely nothing. You had zero generational wealth, you had an empty bank account, and a massive pile of mortgage debt that terrified you to your core. But you understood the basic mechanics of the system by simply acquiring and holding hard physical assets that other people actively went to work to pay for. You bought back your future. That is the true, unfiltered meaning of financial leverage. You did not just buy bricks and wood. You bought your own blood and sweat back from the marketplace. You bought your own autonomy. The system wants you trapped. The system wants you exhausted. The system wants you renting forever, trading your limited hours on earth just to survive. You broke the loop. The rent is still due on the first of the month, but now the check has your name on it.